You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your opinionated yet strangely entertaining host. And with me, as always, is my partner.
It's Rocco, and there's a lot that you can mold out of that statement.
Well, look, am I wrong? Am I not opinionated yet mildly entertaining? So, all right, but it's still not going to save you, Rocco, because you don't agree with my beautiful compliments that I pay myself. It means that you have to suffer through the engineering joke of the week. Okay, ready?
We're ready.
Okay. What kind of exercise do electrical engineers enjoy?
What kind?
Circuit training, of course. They get worse every week. It's great. I love it. All right. Let's get into the show for today. So today, folks, I want to talk about training. And look, I know this is a topic that we get into a lot here on the show. But I want to take a slightly different approach to it today. We usually talk about kind of the why of training, right, and how important it is to your company. And I want to start from the assumption here today that you guys have already kind of listened to all of our discussions in that vein, and of course that you naturally agree with all of the brilliant arguments that I laid out. I know Rocco certainly does, or maybe not, but he's going to have to deal with it anyway. So for today's podcast, I want to focus on more of the how of training instead, right? I want to get into the different types of technical training and how they work and really what the pros and cons are of each kind. So Rocco, in terms of our business here at Zentech, right, how many of our clients come looking to us for technical and software related training instead of something else?
That's a big portion of what we do. And the technology is constantly changing and constantly improving, and it's hard for customers to keep up with it all the time. You live in the world of what you do, right? Architecture, engineering, construction. You're not in technology and developing technology every single day. So it's a big part of our business here.
Okay. All right. So let's get into it then, right? So there are really kind of four training methods that I want to hit on here today, right? And that's, in-person training, online public training, online custom training, and on-demand training. And look, folks, don't sweat it if you're not familiar with any of those terms. I'm going to kind of explain them as we go. So I'm going to hit on all four of those and kind of the good and the bad that I see in each. But, the thing to keep in mind here is that there really is no one size fits all answer for this, right? Different companies are going to respond better to certain methods of training than others. And sometimes the same company can need different training methods or different ways of training delivery at different times of the year or for different personnel. I'm going to tell you which ones I prefer and that we see work best for the majority of our clients. But that doesn't mean that, what you're doing or planning on doing is wrong because it doesn't agree with what I say. We just want to make sure that, everybody listening can make informed decisions, right? So let's start today with the in-person training model. This one is very traditional, right? And most everybody listening has been through this at some point, right? The concept is you get a qualified trainer, you pick a topic, and then you go into your building and you set up a conference room with some laptops and maybe a projector. You got a large screen on the wall, right? And then the trainer comes in from anywhere from like a day to a week, right? And they just teach your staff whatever the topic is in these full day blocks. Yeah, and look, I get it, right? It follows the public school teaching methods that we all grew up with and that we know. So it's a comfortable option for a lot of people, right? We're familiar with it. I think the issue, though, is that it really is far and away the least beneficial training option. For starters, it's always way more expensive because you're going to need to pay your trainers, right, for their travel and room and meals and, everything else. And that's going to go on top of any fee for the actual training class. And honestly, that's not even the biggest issue in my mind. I think the biggest negative that I see with in-person training is that your students' information retention rate, it drops down to below 20% very quickly. In-person training is almost always at least one full day, right, at minimum. And it's because, like I said, the additional cost. You want to get those trainers in and out as fast as you can. You don't want to pay to keep those trainers coming in, day after day if you don't have to. So you try and get that into as, either 1 or 2 or 3 days if it's at all possible. And you make your students just go sit in that class and learn everything there is to know about this software or this process. And it's just too much info dump. Every study that's ever been done by anybody shows that any training session that is longer than a 2-hour block is wasted. Students just can't remember any more information after they hit that 2-hour point. It just can't happen. So Rocco, right? We will do in-person training here at Zentech, right? If the client insists, though I always try to talk them out of it. In general, right? Are the results as successful with those full day classes as they are with shorter sessions?
Yes and no. I mean, it's, but for the most part, it's no, because you're pulled into that dedicated time, whatever it is, 1, 3, 5 days, and you've lost all that time in productivity to your regular work. So now you're going, you go back to work the next week or the next day, and now you got to catch up on everything that you've lost on. You lost out on the week prior or the day prior, and so you're just playing catch up. So, and at some point it's like, okay, what did I learn last week? What did I learn 2 days ago? So it's very difficult, especially in today's age where there's so much communication going on and so many things moving so quickly all at once. But everybody learns differently. I mean, there are people that that's what they want. That's what they do. And like Jim said, we'll do it if we have to, but we don't encourage it at this stage.
Not a big fan of it. I am, however, I think I'm going to institute a new rule here on the podcast, Rocco, because I've noticed whenever I ask you questions, your answer is always, well, yes and no, or, well, it depends. You're only allowed to give a yes or a no answer from now on. I want a positive answer one way or another. All right, so I guess that's kind of lead us into our second training option, right? Which is what we call the online public class. And this is where, a trainer or, a partner like Zentech offers a kind of a standardized class that's open for anybody from the general public to sign up and attend, right? And usually this is a pre-formatted class with a set, topic list. And this is great for sharing, general processes and system knowledge to a wide range of users from a lot of different fields and companies. And I think just, like we were saying, right, the key here with these online public classes, you want to make sure that your trainer isn't exceeding that 2-hour mark in a single session, right? Even if the overall class length is longer than that. I mean, for example, we usually do like 8-hour classes here at Zentech. You still want to make sure that they are being delivered in 2-hour blocks across multiple days. This means that your students can easily recall what they were taught, right? And then they can go ahead from the class and they can practice it or apply it on the same day in a production environment, right? Which I think addresses what Rocco was saying, right? If you don't get back to it for 3 or 4 days, you forgot what you learned. And so the way that we do it, we offer these sessions, these 2-hour blocks for our classes once a week, right? So that everybody has a chance to, practically use what we covered, and then they can come back with questions for the instructor in the next session. And I think the other important point here is that by doing these 2-hour online sessions, right, students get to attend it right from their own desks, right? They're not going to lose a full day of productivity. They're not going to lose, a full day of not being billable. And that's where the real cost for those full day in-person trainings come from. It's the lost revenue of taking your staff down for that long, right? That costs way more than any class does. And I think, online training like this, it also means that your students are able to follow along and work with the instructor in their own work environment, right? Which really dramatically improves the information and process retention for the students. I will say, I think, the biggest drawback to these online public classes is that you do have to follow a pretty rigid outline, right? Because you've got people from, multiple companies who are in this class, right? That means that the instructor can't get bogged down into details about, your specific issues or your problems or how your company handles this or works in that type of environment. And look, don't get me wrong, right? These are great for general software or process education. But there is limited info you can get into here on specific challenges that your firm has to deal with. So, Rocco, how much of our training programs are focused around these online public classes? And what's the kind of the general feedback we get from clients, on our training methodology there?
Yeah, the majority of what we do is public classes, and it works for the majority of folks. Obviously that's why we do more of it. And the feedback is very good, but again, not every style works for every individual, right? I mean, if you're a relatively quick learner, the public classes work very, very well. You have the ability to ask questions, by chat. We open up the phone lines at the end. We offer access to the recording, for 7 days. So it works for the majority of folks.
Okay. All right. I tell you what, that seems like a good spot to take a break, right? So we'll, shut up for a minute so the sponsors can get a word in. And when we get back, I'll get into the other two methods, that we discussed of getting your staff trained. All right. So stick around, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you. Aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at Zentech Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right, CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing and implementing and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from Zentech Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking about training, particularly the how of getting your staff the best technical and process training that you can. And we still have two types of training methods that I really wanted to get into in this half of the program, right? So let's kind of jump right into it by talking about online custom training. Look, this is still, it's heavily focused on the online process, right? And it needs to adhere to all of the same time and scheduling limitations that we discussed in the top half of the show. And there are really two concepts underneath online custom training that it incorporates. I mean, obviously, right? It's custom, right? So you're designing your own custom class with topics and tools and features that you need specifically for your company's work process. But in my mind, this can also be, right, this online custom, it can also be kind of a variant of the public class, right? In other words, you can take any standard public offering, like we were talking about in the first half. You can take any of those public classes, and you can have that public class with its set topics and features and tools, but just run it specifically for your own people, right? With no other companies in attendance online. And the benefit, I think, to that is that you can still have, all the positives of a well-curated class, but you get the added benefit of being able to kind of, take a right turn and delve in more detail into the items that are of the most interest to you and your company. Right? The instructor is going to have a lot more flexibility in being able to answer those questions, in real time as you're working through it than he would in a public class. When you get to this custom structure. And the other thing, you can even use, your own company files or your own company templates or so on, right? When you're doing this type of online custom class, and that can have a real positive impact on your people, right? Not only in retaining the training information, but I think it really helps them fully understand, how do I apply what I've learned into our actual day-to-day work environment with our files and our standards and our features. So, Rocco, we do these custom private types of classes all the time. How do we change the format for those versus the public classes, right? And what's kind of the response that we get from clients who engage with us for more of these private training classes?
Yeah, for one, I think the biggest benefit that the customers see is that they're one-on-one with one of our instructors. So they're able to have that dialogue back and forth through an open phone line, or a chat, but a lot prefer the open phone line. That's probably the biggest benefit. We offer access to the recording of the sessions as well, so they see value in that. They can go back and review the content. Those are probably the biggest points that stand out. But the custom, right? I mean, the concept of this is made for me, right? That's anybody likes that in anything, right? You get a T-shirt, it's got your name on it, you feel special. It's those little things that make that focused approach. It's much more helpful for folks.
Yeah. And like I said, I think that is a big thing that I see on the tech side, right? That, it's one thing for us, we can go in and say, hey, in this class, we're going to show you guys, maybe it's, I don't know, it's a Bluebeam class, and we're going to show you guys, how do you do a basic markup? Okay, that's great. That's a general public class. Versus when it's in the private class, like you said, it's custom to you. When you say, okay, yeah, that's how you do a general markup, but we do very specific, on-site inspections to get this information. How do we do that? Oh, yeah. And now we can get into more detail with that. I think it's a huge benefit for folks. So the last type of training, right, that I really wanted to get into today, it's the idea of, on-demand or pre-recorded training sessions. Now, those of you who listen to the podcast regularly know that it is not my personal favorite delivery method. But I do think that it does have a very important place. Look, there are a lot, especially right now, there are a lot of software as a service, right? The SaaS training offerings out on the market, and they tout, we've got pre-recorded videos for every possible eventuality, thousands of them, and for $5 a month, you can have unlimited access. All right, these are the ultimate low-cost training solutions. And look, we have worked with these systems, and we've worked with clients who bought them over the years, and we've even worked with clients who have tried building their own in-house video libraries for training systems. And I don't think any of them are the best answer for long-term training. 99% of them wind up dumping those systems after about a year when no one uses them. I do think, however, right, that there is a massive benefit in this pre-recorded training environment for extremely busy individuals if you do it correctly. And that's the key, right? It's not just a one size fits all here. You can't say, oh, we're doing pre-recorded training and that's that. It's not going to work. Look, I understand, right? People want this because there are a lot of us who just don't have the time to just, attend scheduled training, once a week at the drop of a hat. I just got to set aside time. Well, some of our jobs just don't work that way, right? Particularly in the construction environment. We need to be able to kind of get the learning in where and when we can, right? And that's where, the on-demand training is vital, but it needs to be structured in the same way that we talked about the structure for the other online class offerings. Your best bet here, I think, is taking recordings of those courses that were run live for other students, right? Whether it was a public or a private class, it's an actual class. So you still get the benefits of the instructor answering questions from other people who are doing the same type of work, maybe even people from your own company, right? And you get their views and their questions and their concerns, right? That are probably going to affect you as well, even though you may be watching this all by yourself at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. And God forbid that you're working that late. It's also important that you limit the on-demand training to that same 2-hour limit that we talked about, right? Just because you got the 8-hour recording, you can't watch the whole 8 hours in once. You can't. And it's
especially
also,
if Jim is teaching it.
Especially if I'm teaching, I put myself to sleep, man. You don't ever want to do that. I won't do it. I actually refuse. It's one of the benefits of owning the company. When they say, hey, we want the 8-hour, I'm like, yeah, get somebody else, not me. I ain't doing that anymore. But yeah, I think another important thing is that when you do it, you've got to make sure that you're getting an on-demand class that provides all of the training materials, right? Example files, handouts, right? The drawing files, whatever it is you're working with, right? That people used in the live session, right? They have to come with the pre-recorded training so that, the students who are doing the on-demand can go through the exact same exercises, study the same functions that the live students did. And in my mind, that's one of the major failings of most of those, software as a service on-demand, offerings. They give you a video and that's it. You get a video. Here's the video. Just follow the video. It'll tell you everything you need. Yeah, it doesn't work. I think it is important that when you're looking for on-demand classes, that you make every effort to engage the viewer who's watching the recording in the same way that an instructor would engage with a live audience. And obviously, right, there are technical limitations to that, but you got to try. So, Rocco, like you said before, right, we offer all of our courses. Every one of them comes with an on-demand option as well. Whether it's for a limited time or whatever. But, what's the feedback that you get from people who take those on-demand versions? And what do we do as a company to kind of ensure that, insistence and communication with the instructor is available, right? Even if they're just doing one of the on-demand recorded sessions.
We have an evaluation at the end of our on-demand, actually all of our classes. But since we're talking about on-demand here, at the end of those classes, we offer an evaluation, and this is the truth. I mean, I review those, each of those that come in, and folks really like it. I mean, they appreciate the fact that they can, run through the recording as many times as they need to during that during that 7-day period. They can stop and pause and rewind the recording. So there's a lot of benefit there, and the ratings are high. I mean, we usually ask for scorings of 1 to 5, and most folks fall in the 4 to 5 range. What was the other part of your question, Jim?
Well, yeah, I think I was kind of drifting towards what we do in terms, right? So with our classes, what we make sure we do is all of the files, all the materials that people got in the live class, those are available to download right alongside the recording, right, in our platform. And the other thing is we always make available, when you purchase any of the on-demand classes from the tech side, there is an email, right? You can just email training@zentechconsultants.net, right? And we forward those to the instructor for your class. And you can, even though, yeah, there's a little delay, right, because you're doing an email, you're still going to be able to ask questions. That's part of what it is. And I think that's a really important thing when you're looking to do on demand. You can't just leave guys like, yeah, watch a video, figure it out yourself, because sometimes they didn't address your specific problem. It's better to have some way to engage with the original instructor, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, folks. So, like I said at the top of the show, there is absolutely no right way to handle training, right? They all have a time and a place, where they are beneficial. Well, at least the online ones do. I rarely agree that in person is worthwhile in the modern age. But for most of us, right, a combination of all these different processes can address pretty much everybody's training needs, right? We have a lot of clients, who will send, for example, all of their in-house office people. Well, they go to the public training classes, and field guys, right? They have to use, on-demand recorded classes because they're in the field all day, right? And management or people who do like a little overlap hybrid role wearing multiple hats, they get custom classes to, address their specific needs, right? And here's what I suggest, right? I suggest you guys work to get together a list of the people who you feel need training, right? And then figure out which option training-wise is going to work best for each individual. Do that before you even start choosing topics to train them on, right? Know how they're going to get trained, right, before you decide what they're going to get trained on. And I think when you go out and you work with a dependable training partner, like Zentech, that they're going to offer the class in whatever format or formats, right? If you got multiple people doing it different ways, the formats are going to work best for you, right? And I think that's the important aspect there, okay? So with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up for today and let you guys get on with going ahead and lining up some good technical training for your staff, all right? We're going to bounce out of here, folks, and we'll catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.